grateful to Father Michael for allowing me to preach at the Mass he's celebrating, although, to be honest, I didn't give him a choice. A century ago, the big issue for Catholics and Protestants alike was the automobile. The Spanish flu, of course, was a problem too, killing millions as it did. Yet it was the automobile that was a more enduring threat, some thought, more of a game changer. Protestants worried a lot about drinking and driving. For some reasons, Catholics not so much. Everybody worried about the speed these cars were going. People were getting hit and run over in droves. G.K. Chesterton, actually, the great Catholic writer, he even suggested that some drivers were hitting people for sport. Now, I don't know about that. That was sort of Chesterton's style, hyperbole. But it wasn't all about public safety. One preacher even complained the presence of the automobile made his parishioners demand shorter sermons. Because now everyone wanted out of church by noon in time for their Sunday afternoon drive. Again, likely an exaggeration, but one for which I'm particularly sensitive. It was nonetheless a grave subject for concern to many Christians, the rise of the automobile, because it was changing things fundamentally and permanently, and people could tell. One change was actually in how people went to church. Warren Wilson was a social reformer, a sociologist, and a Presbyterian. And writing about the influence of the automobile on church life in 1924, he said, "It's amazing to see some churches on a Sunday surrounded by, quote, acres of automobiles. Yet on the other hand," he said, "the abandonment of country churches goes on apace. Churches that are not on the lines of motor travel show uneasiness," he said, "while those upon the new highway or near enough for convenience see a future for themselves and hold their ground." His advice to churches was to get near to the road as quick as you can and to build larger churches too. But of course, the reason is because now parishioners could choose to travel to other churches, not stuck in their provincial little communities. Wilson didn't see much problem in this. It was what it was. Christians were mobile. The churches needed to adapt to survive. Christians were no longer rooted, so the churches needed to attract to thrive. After the advent of the automobile, Christian life wasn't just about being disciples. It was also about being drivers. It's all quaint to think about today. One priest who was interviewed in 1916 said he thought the automobile was here to stay. You wonder what he would have made of the rest of the century. Landing on the moon, for instance, or this century with our growing list of orbital billionaires. One wonders what he would have made of all the dying towns all over rural America today. Thinking of churches, one wonders what he would have said. Today, it's not just cars, it's the internet. Today, you can participate in a mass halfway across the world, going there in a certain sense, without leaving home, without darkening the doors of your local parish. Or you can easily drive to another parish, perhaps where the homilies are shorter. We are freer now more than ever. Rootless more than we've ever been, and honestly, I love it. I'm not giving up my car at all. Life is a highway, Tom Cochran saying, that's right, that's true, that's good. Just drove halfway across the state of Texas last week because I wanted to. As Wilson, the Presbyterian sociologist, said, it is what it is. The churches need to adapt and attract to survive. That's just true. But perhaps we should think about it a little. I think it's interesting that in the Middle Ages, from time to time, churches would pass laws forbidding parishioners from moving from one parish to another. They would actually pass laws against it. Parishes were very small, usually only a few hundred people. The priest was often raised up from within the community. So for many a medieval Christian, his or her whole experience of the church would have been of but one small community and maybe one or two priests, all his or her life. Think about that. And the church seemed to prefer this. Although the church had to enforce this localism at times, even for clergy in the 13th century, the Archbishop of Canterbury had to order the Bishop of Coventry back to his diocese with a strongly worded letter. Things need your attention, but you have been absent so long you do not seem to care, he wrote. In the Christian tradition, there's always been at some level hesitancy and concern about the wandering, rootless, cosmopolitan life. Christianity's always tended towards Stoicism in this sense. Admitting, the reality and even at times the benefits of the open road and travel and all that, still, the church has always wanted to preserve the local, the village, the parish, the neighborhood, the home. To be completely rootless, without home or community or parish, was always considered spiritually dangerous. Saint Benedict, at the very beginning of his rule, talked about drifters, gyrovagues, he called them, wanderers, literally. Always on the move, they never settle down, slaves to their own wills, he wrote. Benedict said it was better really just not to talk about them, miserable as they were. The Desert Fathers, almost all of them, they said that when a monk learned to stay in his cell, when he finally stopped wandering about, only then would he or she finally find God and the greatest purification of the soul. Fascinated like us by the freedom of the open road and the wide horizon, as I said, still our ancestors, our forebears were cautious. They still prized the small and the local. Dante in the Inferno, for instance, he was clearly fascinated by Ulysses, right? The great ancient sort of explorer and traveler. He was Ulysses' biggest fan, as far as we can tell. But still, Dante wrote him into hell, He found Ulysses as hero in hell, and he's listening to Ulysses, and he puts these words in his mouth that my whole life was a quote, mad flight. It was a mad flight because he abandoned his community. He didn't keep close to those who were close to him. Now, I bring all this up, you know me enough now in my own strange way, because I want to talk about this parish, about renewal. We've given this weekend over to what in the past we've called Community Weekend, and if you've been here a while, you know it's taken all sorts of incarnations over the past, and this year we're being very simple. I really, this year, just want to emphasize one thing over the rest. Of course, we need you to keep contributing financially to the parish. Thank you so much for your generosity. Many of you are so beautiful in your giving, and especially these last 18 months. It's been heroic and sacrificial. And I'm grateful to those who give a lot, and to those who give a little, really those who give what they can. Giving to the poor, giving to the parish is a good thing. It is a good thing. I'm not embarrassed to say that at all. It's spiritually good. Sometimes we get a little bit bashful about saying this. It's spiritually good for you and I to strive to give what we can to the Lord and the building up of his kingdom. We always strive to do good things with what you give us. We always clean audits as long as anybody can remember. We always try and do our best with what you bless us with. But the thing that I think it's important for us to remember is that it's spiritually good, as I said, for you to give from your first fruits, thanksgiving offerings to God. It's actually, and again, we're too bashful about this, it's actually good for your soul to express your thanks to God for building up his body, the church, and bruised though we are, goodness gracious, and as crazy as things get, every time I get sort of frazzled, I stop and I take a breath and I remember, guess what? This is the Holy Catholic Church. Think about that. This is the Holy Catholic Church. As a convert, that still gives me chills to think about. I've been outside it. I'll never be outside it again. This is what we give to. Early Christians actually read Jesus' words, which we just heard about building treasure in heaven. The early Christians heard those words and they read those words literally. They read those words actually literally, which is why you go over to Europe and you see these amazing buildings, because that's what they thought they were doing. Giving to the poor, giving to the church, those things were woven together in the early Christian mind. They believed it was spiritual. They believed it was redemptive, our ancestors. Commercium spiritale, they called it. Spiritual exchange. They weren't bashful about it like we are. We've been corrupted by the Kenneth Copelands of the world and the evangelists who have ruined it. But I think that might be right, actually, the way these early Christians thought about it. It's definitely more biblical. It's quite possibly the truth. That such generosity is not just good. It's not just good, but strangely, it might be necessary for the soul. But about this, I really don't have much to say other than to say thank you. I mean, you guys are so beautiful, so beautiful. And thank you very much, and please continue, please give what you can, please give more, please commit. But as I said, I want to emphasize something else. And that's this ancient wisdom about community and stability, about the spirituality of the local, and about staying in place. Because I think that too is spiritually good for you and for me. To be here, to love here, to forgive here, to put up with each other until it all gives way to heaven. All this is meant to just sort of slip into heaven. Because I love you, and I want to be in heaven with you. Because I hope we love each other and want heaven together, you know, and as we're waiting for this to fall into heaven, in the meantime, let's become friends in this community, this parish, so imperfect, but still so beautiful. Each of us sinners, but loved so very much by God. And so that's my ask, in addition to your pledge, you know. That we commit to this community, this place, this parish, because such rootedness is good. Such stability, putting up with each other, not wandering, it's good for us as Christians, as disciples, learning to love our way to heaven by way of truth, sacraments, and forgiveness. It's good for the wider church, for our city and the world. You know, there's a lot that needs fixing in our world, no doubt. Wendell Berry said this, you know, politics and big stuff, but Wendell Berry also said we need better minds, better friendships, better marriages, better communities. And that's right. And that's what you and I can do if we commit to this parish, building that little hope, that local love that changes lives, and maybe in the fullness of time, the world. And so that's my ask, that we begin our renewal by gathering in this parish, sinners though we are, trusting in a grace that's, goodness gracious, big enough for all of us. It's lovely, beautiful. And so, practically speaking, what I want to do is you'll see these things, right, at the end of your pew. I just want you to take one, right, and just read through it. It's designed to be sort of not like a pamphlet, but something you read through and sort of helping you to discern. And it's just a way to think about what you're doing, think about what you can do, think about what you might change in how you sort of participate in the community. And really just plug in. We mailed you the pledge cards last week. I got mine in the mail. And so keep a lookout for those. If you didn't get one, certainly let us know. But as we open doors and as things get back to normal, as we gather again and again and again, as we put out the call for to serve, you know, pray, discern, think, step up, and plug in, because it's the way to plant yourself, to grow roots, and then to bloom. So thank you very much. I love this community. Amen.